So this webinar is organized by Chat Europe. So Chat Europe is a EU-funded project that gathers 10 different European news media. And AFP, the International News Agency, is the leader of this project. So within Chat Europe, we have developed a platform on European news that integrates a chatbot, and my colleague Mathieu Gors will tell you more about it very soon. So as you know, over the last years, many news websites have experimented AI assistance. So you have the Washington Post, the Financial Times, Le Monde are some of them. But here today we have gathered 4 media that have experimented with a chatbot, and we are very pleased to welcome. So we have Martin Schori from the Swedish media Aftonbladet. We have David Dieudonné from Ouest-France, the French daily newspaper. Sébastien Noir and Justyna Kurczabinska from the European Broadcasting Union. And the Chat Europe team, of which I'm part of, composed of Mathieu Gors, Stefanita Stoica, and Mirko Lawrence. There's just 4 of us, but there's a whole team behind us that is also listening to the webinar today. And so the objective of the webinar is to share with you our different experiences. So just to go over quickly the agenda of the webinar. So first, each media is going to present its chatbot. Then we'll have a discussion on the different challenges that we all faced launching a news chatbot. And then we'll have a question and answer session. So you can post your questions on the chat on this the chat of this webinar on the Teams chat, and we'll try to answer as many of them. So let's start. Maybe Mathieu, you can start by presenting Chat Europe.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mary. So yeah, so thanks everybody to join. So just a few words to introduce what we are doing with Chat Europe. So as Mary said, it's a European collaborative project involving 10 different media from Italy, Spain, Germany, Poland, Romania, and France, and with technical partners, Druid for the chatbot. So the website is hosting content in 7 European languages. So what we wanted to do with this project is to build a pan-European database with media content in 7 different languages. And the most important thing, to experiment how a chatbot can provide reliable summaries from this database. So, and of course, as it's a European news initiative, the idea is to breaking language barriers, because of course, chatbot is a tool able to answer in all EU language. Druid chatbot is able to work in 60 languages. So of course, we have implemented the 27 European language. So the project has been online since July. We're using a LLM from the French company Mistral. Our technical partner Druid can work with any kind of LLM, but what we wanted for this project is to have a European solution. What we can change the slide, maybe Mary, if you can. So this is the homepage of the news platform. So this is the English page, because we have 7 different languages. So you can ask a question in whatever language you want in any kind of national pages. So you can change maybe, because I'm not, yeah. So this is an example of how the chatbot is presenting to the user. So the idea, as it's a database only on European news, so we gather this content from all the European media partners of the project. So it's only able to answer queries about European news, of course, and it's clearly prompted to say no when it does not have the answer. As of course, the accuracy is the most important thing. We have clear disclaimers stressing the experimental approach of the project, because the idea is to learn together how we can build a tool able to, of course, respect and avoid any risk of hallucination, and we have prompted it to stick the most close as possible to the content of the original article. And so of course we invite the user to consult the source linked. If we can change the slide, Mary, please. Okay, so as I said, the sources are clearly linked at the end of the article. So basically the chatbot is working with 3 articles. So we provide the sources at the end. So of course you can consult the article, and it's also advice. I mean, we advise the user to consult the articles. And we also, from the content, the chatbot is able to generate follow-up questions if the user wants to get more elements. So for the moment, we have, you don't have sound?
I can hear you very well, Matthew.
And what about the others? You don't have... Okay. So maybe it's just for one person. Okay, so just to finish, so for them, since last week we just have content from the Chat Europe media partners, and now what we want to do is to see how we can add other reliable the source library. So we choose Eurostat because of course it's a super reliable source, and we add this source to the chatbot. So the chatbot now is going to crawl the Eurostat database. So it's particularly interesting for queries on economic or social topics. But what we do is we do not mix the source. The chatbot generates firstly its answer with the Chat Europe content before offering another answer with Eurostat data. So that's the next phase we just entered a few days ago. So now you can have these both sources. So as I said, it's an experiment. The idea is really to see how together with this 10 media organization, how we can provide reliable summaries from media content.
Thank you very much, Mathieu. So let's move on to EBU. Tell us all about your Neo chatbot. Sébastien or Justyna, you want to share your screen? Maybe it's better. Yeah.
So you have it, Justyna, right?
Sorry?
I thought you wanted to start. All right, so I can as always.
No, we can. I'm happy to start. Let's go to maybe slide 3, Seb. We go with 3. Yeah, perfect. So what should you care about Neo? Why should you care about any chatbot that we'll be discussing today? And these are some of these figures you know very well. There is an increasing number of people who consume news via this channel. Although this is not, of course, a primary interest or topic that is used on generative AI, but it's really, really increasing. And of course, AI assistants are also replacing search engines. So it's more and more important also in getting, when possible, to your content. There is, of course, problem of going to the original content, but that's another one. So what we've discovered very recently is that was quite very interesting, is that a very important portion of traffic to the EBU website, so the corporate website of the EBU, is actually from ChatGPT. So we cannot underestimate the importance of these tools, which enable ultimately us staying in touch with the audience. What we did last year that I would like to mention in this context is we did a big study on the AI assistants, and you might have also heard about it. So we focused on the news integrity of the content from public service media. If you're interested in the report, you can now download it from there. And basically what this report, we analyzed 4 AI assistants. It was the biggest international study because there was 22 members, including BBC in 18 countries and 14 languages. And this is just really the headline. There is many more interesting findings, but basically almost half of the content, half of the responses had significant issues. There was also important problems of sourcing, and that is not good for the media content that we are publishing if there is such a important distortion. So what we did in the EBU, if we can go to the next slide, is we have over 5 years ago, not because of chatbots, we haven't heard, we didn't talk about them at that time, is we've built a big data base, a place which we imagined would be like a kind of public service media news agency. So we brought together articles from online content in real time in original languages and translated, and still are translating it in English in real time. So we have about 3,000 articles a day. And we brought it into one place, in a place which we call now news data hub. And if we can move Seb to the next one, please. And this digital news and data hub became really not only a news agency where we could find information. It became foundation also of a content sharing project, European perspective, but more importantly, it became really a place of innovation for other projects such as public service algorithm or NEO. So where NEO came from was really from this repository, from this hub of trusted PSM content. And I hand over to Seb.
So this was the basis of the product, obviously, with this great collaboration that we had between different newsrooms, different journalists and editors. And NEO started first as a tool for journalists. But last year, or a bit more than a year ago now, the Swedish radio came with an interesting question. What if we could use NEO to better understand the needs of our users? Now I'd like to refer to that even as a way to measure the audience for the content that you do not have. Because if you see many people asking for specific things, say, for example, I don't know, cryptocurrencies or the price for gold at the moment, and this is not something you are covering, maybe you are lacking coverage for pleasing and satisfying the needs of the users. But we don't have much time, so I will just play the video that the Swedish radio have done themselves to promote the work that they have done together with us. Hopefully, sorry, just with the audio, it will be so much better. Now it should be fine. You tell me.
The news never stops. But trust is harder to find. At Sveriges Radio we asked, what if you could talk to the news and trust the answer?
We wanted to build something that puts journalism first and that helps people feel confident about the news again.
We're not just covering breaking news. We put a lot of effort into helping people understand the bigger picture. And this new tool makes it easier for users to surface those deeper stories.
Our AI-powered news search connects your questions with real journalism. Always traceable, always transparent.
And not every important story makes the front page. This tool helps people find what matters to them, even if it was published last week or last month.
Step by step, we explore tomorrow's news experience boldly, responsibly, and always grounded in public service.
So that was the starting point in going to the audience. They are not the only ones in production with the tool at the moment. We have other members as well. So LSM in Latvia launched in October as well. And recently, my Swiss colleagues at Swissinfo have also launched it. And now we are in discussions with more EBU members as well to deploy that to their digital audience. I think we will stop it here. Over to you, Marie.
Thank you, Sébastien and Justyna. So, well, let's stay in Sweden and hear Martin Schori tell us about their experiment in Aftonbladet. Martin, if you can share your slides. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to see you all. me and Teams are not always that compatible, but you can see my screen. Perfect.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so well, yes, I'm going to talk a little bit about our journey with an experience with chatbots. Aftonbladet is, as mentioned here, based in Sweden. We are the biggest news media destination here. Sweden has around 10 million people, and we reach almost 4 million of them every day. So quite a big impact here. Long history of chats, actually. To the left here, you can see, of course, Robin, the artist. She did a chat with our users in 1996. And many years later, our journalist Nivet Davoud did a historic long live chat about COVID-19 and was nominated for a very prestigious journalism prize here. So chat has always been chatting with the audience in one way or the other has been core to Aftonbladet. We come from a tabloid background, always had a very close relationship to our audience, I would say. When the boom of generative AI started, right after ChatGPT was launched, we did some experiments to see how could we use this technology for the benefits of our users and the newsroom. Among other things was chatting, and obviously it was also a way to see if there's a demand of consuming and engaging with journalism in this way. We saw this really rapid user behavior growing with people asking questions about chatting to ChatGPT, basically, because that was the only one that was around. But our first experiment was a bit unusual. We actually woke up our first king, Gustav Vasa. This was when Sweden turned 500 years, and we were brainstorming on how we could highlight that in a fun and engaging way. So we trained a database and a robot on all the content we could find about Gustav Vasa. But that was an early experiment, one of the first things we did. Probably the biggest bet as of then was our election chatbot that we launched right before the EU elections. EU elections is not a very engaging topic for most Swedes, so it was kind of a bit risky. We spent a lot of resources and money into developing this chatbot. You can see the interface in the middle there. We had pre-prompted questions, as you can see, but people could also ask their own questions about the EU elections. And we used open data and also interviews about candidates, parties, and the election, and spent a lot of time in order to prevent it from making any hallucinations. And this also involved a lot of manual work because we were constantly updating the database. It became quite a success. It answered around 150,000 questions, and that gave us the confidence to try it also on the US elections. And that was even more a success. So I just have some, again, this is, I'll come back to the US elections, but this is how the avatar looked like for the EU. Again, we come from a tabloid background. For us, it was important that we have a friendly, informal tone of voice, like a cute avatar that people could engage with. That was what's one thing that I think differed from some of the other chatbots. But again, also when we launched it for the US elections, we had 500,000 questions answered. So and only in like a month. So that kind of gave us we could really see that there is a demand for consuming journalism in this way. Also, we wanted to see, can we reach new target groups? A lot of young people are, as we saw in some numbers before here, very used to using chatbots right now. We can also see tendencies of a growing number of news avoiders and who are, worn out by the constant news feeds. Obviously, hyper-personalized experience. In many ways, chatbots are kind of the antithesis to media, because you get these really, you have a question, there's something that you wonder about the news cycle, you ask it, you get answers, rather than trying to scroll and find the answer in an article or in a video clip or in a podcast or whatever it is. So it adds a value, definitely. Also elevates journalism that we have done, but that is not like on the front page anymore. And also try to meet these new needs. So these are the opportunities with chatbots, and the ones that we saw and the ones that we were trying to reach and to find. And after the Gustav Vasa, the true election, more niche chatbots, we launched Hej Aftonbladet, which you can see in an example of here on the screen. And Hej Aftonbladet is based on all our content, news, sports, entertainment, recipes, and weather 3 years back. So you type a question, you get an answer, you will get some links, and you will also get AI-generated follow-up questions. This is in English, but Hej speaks 50 languages, so you could ask it in many different languages. And what Hej does is, again, it kind of takes all our content that we have done, breaks it down into smaller atoms, and then repackaging. So using this verified journalism and producing answers out of that. So only our verified journalism. It does not go out on the internet and tries to find answers that it doesn't have. So this is how it can look. A user asks a question. I don't know how your school Swedish is, but if it's not good, I can just, I'm not going to say what it says, but here we can see that it extracts an answer from 3 articles that we have published. So very user-friendly, I would say, in that way. We can also see that Hej works best in a news context. You can find it on the front page where it has a more general approach with pre-prompted questions. But when it works best, it is when we kind of tie it to a big news event. So when, for example, now with the war in Iran, we will have a widget with questions about that conflict tied to the other content that we have regarding that, and then we can see that the engagement spikes a lot. So I'm almost about to finish here, but we have seen for a long time around 50,000 questions. It's not users, actually, it's questions per day. The last weeks, we have kind of increased the usage a lot. We have doubled it, so it's around 100,000 questions a day, and that's because of the war in Iran, and that's also because we kind of put that widget in relation to all the other stuff that we do around that war. Up until now, Hej has answered around 7 million questions, and we launched it in June, you can say, of 2025. So a lot of questions and a lot of engagement. There is a big difference though between Hej Aftonbladet, the general chatbot, and the election chatbots, and that is that the niched ones around the elections, it seemed to drive more engagement in terms of that conversational usage. So people there, I guess you chose to kind of integrate with the election chatbot because you're interested in the election. So then you would ask a question, you would get an answer, you ask a follow-up questions and kind of dig deeper. That behavior, we don't really see that with Hey. Hey, right now at least, is more of a service for people who just wonder something and kind of push a button, get an answer, and then they leave it. So it's a very convenient way of getting information about a specific news event, but we don't see the conversational behavior quite as much. So that's a big difference. Yeah, no feedback. That's our users are very fast, and you spell something wrong in an article, get 200 emails asking if it's, do you have to be an idiot to work at Aftonbladet? But we haven't seen any feedback at all. Like not a single email about this. So I guess that's good, because then people just see this as something that we offer, and they just use it, basically. And I think that's actually a very good thing. I don't know why these came here, but I'm out of slides and would be happy to answer any questions later on.
Thank you, Martin. Well, that's amazing. We'll first hear from David now, David Dieudonné from Ouest-France, who Ouest-France experimented what you just called a niche chatbot. So David will explain to us what their chatbot was all about. David?
Great, thanks so much, Mary. Can you see my screen? I think I'm presenting.
Right now it's a black screen, but I can now it's good. Yeah, now it's good.
Good. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for having me. So I'm really speaking on behalf of the team here, especially Julien Perron, who is the head engineer working on this project, and has been really putting his effort in making it happen. So as you mentioned, it was just an experiment that lasted for 1 week last year. So it's a much modest work than the one Martin just presented. What we try to do is to do it internally using our own resources to follow up on sort of 3 core principles that we have when we try and do AI at Ouest-France. First, maintaining very, very strict sovereignty on our content and making sure we have protection on our editorial data and protect the copyright of the journalists. Second, control over the sort of technological oversight of the project. So we have a team of about a dozen engineers and data scientists that are working full-time and have been very strongly engaged in this project last year. So it was the spring of 2025. And then we don't have a proper AI team per se, so we work very horizontally. So we have this very collaborative, iterative approach. That is sort of also the third pillar of our principles. So you guys mentioned why a chatbot is relevant and helpful. Our goal is just the same as the one you described, meet a need, but also try to avoid and combat disintermediation on our platforms and try to offer the service both on the app and on the web on our site for these users to just enjoy a conversational relationship engagement with the content. So it was, as I said, a time-boxed experiment, 7 days live during a specific sport competition, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, which is a sport race, a car race that happens in the area where Ouest-France is mostly operating, the west of France. What is good as well is that we had important coverage from our sister publications, because Ouest-France also is a group of media with several other weekly and hyper-local publications. So it was a way to sort of add all this content and make all this content available to the user and make sure we can answer every questions about the competition. What is interesting is the relationship it trigger between teams and especially with the newsrooms. When at first Julien, that you see on this picture on the right hand side, was trying to talk about the newsroom, about what is a LLM, how does it work, how can a chatbot be built, people were kind of resistant. What is interesting is finding the right words. Just mentioning it was about question and answers for journalists and users, made it very smooth and create a very strong engagement of the newsroom at the very local level. You see here the team that was covering the race, and everyone was really all in, and saw a great advantage in getting this direct, immediate feedback from the audience about their own coverage, and being able to see sort of angles that they hadn't seen in the way they were thinking about the coverage and covering the event every day. So very strong engagement of the newsroom, which was something we were not absolutely sure about ahead of time. One of the key aspect of building this bot was to create the proper corpus, making sure we had the right editorial content to feed the answers. What is a bit tricky, we'll discuss it when we discuss the risks afterward, but it's difficult not to provide too much. It's more not to provide too much content, because if not, the answers get the quality of the answers get lower. So we selected a very clear set of data, not too many archives, and making sure we would tailor them to the needs of the audience when they would ask the questions. An important point that was mentioned earlier as well is that we created systems to avoid the chatbot to answer to questions when it didn't have the editorial content. So sort of teaching the chatbot to say, I don't know, which is kind of a challenge when you get into the nitty-gritty of it. And then finally, the main metrics are here. So we had a good return on the questions that were asked. We were able to ask many questions, though we blocked some because they were not relevant. We can discuss that later. Maybe one number that is not on this slide is interesting for us as an answer to the challenge that we were trying to solve, this idea of fighting disintermediation. We managed to get a click-through rate that was far superior to the one you get when you have your content used by sort of traditional commercial chatbot, in the range of almost 10%, which we thought was a good way to sort of avoid that the traffic we get in these kind of moments is too much eroded. Thank you for this, and very happy to take questions afterwards.
Thank you, David. So I'll share my presentation again. And can you see my, oh yeah, my screen? Yes. Okay. Yep. All right. Yeah, so thank you very much to all of you for presenting your chatbots. And well, we can see that we all have like the same concern, is like how to preserve the trust with our readers. And so that's why we chose to start this discussion by this topic, like reliability, editorial control, and how basically to ensure our chatbots give reliable answers. So my first question will go to Martin Schori from Aftonbladet. So how did you build your chatbot database, and did you have to add additional sources to have like a sufficient database for your chatbot to answer the questions?
Yeah, so we did a little bit differently when with the different chatbots basically, but the one we have up and running now, the Hey one, we have created a database of articles. So all the articles that we publish in these categories that I mentioned, news, sports, entertainment, weather, and recipes, they end up in that database. We also noticed sometimes that we might have something in from a video, for example, that creates a lot of buzz and people start asking questions about, and then the bot will not be able to answer that. So we do also have a tool that kind of transcribes video into text and then make an article about it and feeds it to Hey. So we don't publish that, but so Hey can answer questions about a video as well. And then we've also added some facts about Aftonbladet and how the media, the press, the system of media ethics work in Sweden, because a lot of people ask questions about that, like why didn't you publish name and photo of this suspect of a crime, for example. But it's based on articles, and then we added we have a sheet with facts as well that we have. We call it facts, but that we have put in there. And we use a RAG model. We use OpenAI's technology to formulate and extract the answers.
Thank you. Don't hesitate if you have other questions, the speakers, if you want to ask other questions to Martin. But the next question that would be for this time for Sébastien or Justyna is like, what like guardrails did you implement to make sure that your chatbot works correctly, like doesn't go and wander around in the World Wide Web, and how do you keep it on tracks, basically?
I think that this is what we kind of said in the beginning. It was built on the database, which already has the guardrails itself, so we didn't really have to worry about that part. And the two important elements, I think, in the way that it operates is one that Mathieu already mentioned. So it's not always answering. So if you don't have the answer, you make it clear and you don't answer. And when you answer, you also make sure that as much as you can, you provide links to the relevant articles. And it's for us kind of double tested, especially for Seb, and I will let him speak, is because this is something that, as you've seen, three member organizations are looking at. So they have different use cases. And before they go live with it, of course, they test it. So this is a constant testing of this tool in different case studies, and the more users will have, the kind of more quality level will be reconfirmed. But so far we had really very positive responses. But I let Seb perhaps say a little bit more to that and how we work in terms of feedback with the members.
Actually, feedback is implemented directly into the tool. At the end of every question, the users can say whether this was a good answer or not a good answer from their perspective. So we have a star system where they can give 1 star to say, that was not great, up to 5 stars to say this was excellent. And then we also have ways to capture the details. So if you say that it was bad, we offer a set of options to say, well, maybe the information is not timely, or it's inaccurate, or it's not complete, or it makes no sense, or things like that. And if it's great, you can also tell us why it was great. And this is present for the journalists who use it in our internal tools, but it's also the case for the audience themselves. And it was quite a big surprise, because we thought initially that we would be lucky if 1% of the users would give us feedback, but actually, probably because the tool is already engaging with the people, we found that people are quite keen in bringing feedback on the tool. And this was extremely helpful for us to understand when we are doing right and when we are not doing what is expected from the public, and then to be able to refine the tool over time. So that's one way of checking the chatbot and see if it's matching its objectives. Also, we send this data to our stakeholders, so to the members who use the tool. We send this data on a weekly basis. We give them a dashboard where they can see the response, the satisfaction rates and things like that, so we can monitor as well if it's doing better or worse for any kind of reasons. Also, sometimes the questions that are selected by the editors, maybe they would lean people to click more or less and so on. So we can understand that on a weekly basis and adjust that accordingly.
Thank you, Sébastien. And what about, so this will be a question for David Dieudonné from Ouest-France. How do you control how do you avoid hallucinations from your chatbot? Did you get a lot of hallucinations when you tested it, and like how did you control the accuracy of the chatbot?
Yeah, absolutely, Mary. It's a key element and a key challenge when you start implementing such features. So there were three sort of way we try to avoid hallucination and sort of control the chatbot in his answers. The first one, as I mentioned, and as it was mentioned by other, is the creation, the selection of the corpus, making sure it is very defined, it is not too deep. It really matches the need of what we think about, the way we think about the need of the audience ahead of time, so that we have a proper content on which the chatbot is going to be able to work and is going to be able to leverage in a way. So this is a big chunk of the work. Maybe the biggest effort, and that's the sort of second directions we took as well, was to work on the user's question itself, making sure we have a system to sort of enrich the question, qualify the question so that the model understands properly what is asked and doesn't deviate from the very need expressed by the user. So there was a lot of work in sort of qualifying, including disqualifying some questions, because we had many people sort of testing the robustness and the solidity of the chatbot and trying to sort of play it, game it, trying to make the chatbot make answers that were not relevant to the competition, or just some people are trying to use different contexts to sort of divert the answers, asking, for example, if there were a car in the race that would be pro-Israel, another one pro-Palestine, which one would win, to sort of get this context within the coverage and then make a screenshot and sort of put it up on the output. So there was a lot of work qualifying the users' answers, making sure they were either treated accordingly with the proper documentation, the proper editorial content, or disqualified and politely dismissed. And then there was the third axis of work, which was to work on the prompting of the model itself, making sure it's only going to use editorial content and not going to try and invent or create over-interpreted editorial content. So there was a lot of work sort of trying to make the model stick to the reality of the corpus and saying, I don't know, when it was when the content was not there, or when the question was just not possibly served by an answer that is that has been sourced and verified by a journalist. So yeah, sort of three areas that we sort of worked ahead of time, and then during the competition's time, and when the feature was live, to make sure we didn't have hallucination. Because of course, at the end of the day, it's the ultimate responsibility of the editor-in-chief, since this content is put out on our website, on our platform, and as sort of and structurally not read or edited by anyone else, because it's personalized answer. So it's like you make a bet on the quality of the answer. So you really have to make sure you have created the systems to make sure you're not legally exposed to risks.
Yeah, that's quite a big challenge. And let's move on to Chat Europe now. And Stefanita Stoica, you developed the chatbot for Chat Europe. So what have been the biggest challenges for Druid, so your company, to make this chatbot reliable?
Thank you, Marie. I would mention three of the most important challenges that we were predicting to have at the beginning of the project. We did have them during the project, and I'm glad to say that we've successfully overcame them One of them is, as the other partners here in the webinar also mentioned, about the adherence only to the existing data and not hallucinating and making sure that the accuracy of the responses fits the data that it was being fed. Given the fact that we had a lot of information coming in from the platform, from the Chat Europe website, where we had all the articles there, we connected this to our Druid platform's knowledge base engine in order to apply the necessary embeddings and the necessary indexing on that information to be able to put the LLM model over it. And the large number of articles meant that we had an issue with the timeline. So basically you had the same topic covered in multiple periods of time. And one of the things that we had was that the answers that were coming from a different period than the user would ask for. Or it was even worse, if users did not put a timeline within their question, then you would have the answer would spread on multiple time frames, and at some point the answers were also becoming conflictual, because it was one way the same topic was treated a few years ago, and it was in a different way that the answer should look like if it happened last month, for instance. So we grouped all the articles together, created a timeline, and we now had the possibility to time frame each period, each article. And also, as we had also heard our colleague before me, we also tempered a bit with the user question. We call it rephrasing, to make sure that when there is something left unclear, we enrich the user's question with information that does not change the intent at all, but allows the AI model to actually pinpoint what is more relevant for the user to get back. This was done by doing prompting optimizations. This was done by making sure that the AI model only responds from the content that is being fed, so the database that we have. And another thing was to make sure that the system prompt is not overwritten by any user input that a malicious person would want to add into the chatbot. So if somebody wanted to make the chatbot respond or behave in a certain way, there were situations in the market where people would instruct the chatbot directly in the user input and overwrite the system prompt. So we made sure that this could not happen. And in order to stay very close to the speed of the updates on the article, we also made the knowledge base automatically refresh from the database, from the website database. So every 30 minutes, we do an automatic refresh based on the publication date of the article or the timestamp of the last update, which means if an article is changed or if a new article appears, it doesn't take more than 30 to 32 minutes for the article to be available in the knowledge of the chatbot. So that's one. Second one is multi-language support, but in a matrix way. Why I'm saying matrix way is because the content on the Chat Europe website is available in 7 languages. The users, however, can type the questions in basically any language they want. That doesn't mean that the available data can be found in the same language that the user has asked the question. So we had to be able to do something to be able to correctly identify the content regardless of the language of the original article and the language of the user. So we created some mechanisms using our own embeddings model to make sure that we identify the intents and make sure we identify the relevant content regardless of the languages. And we applied as a safety measure an automatic translation of the user language into English, because we noticed that the most available content is in English on the Chat Europe website. So as a safety net, at least we got the information from the English articles and still be able to provide an accurate response to the user. The response, however, comes back in the user original language, regardless of the article language. So you could potentially ask in Swedish a question, and you'd get the information from an article that is written in Romanian, but your response would be in Swedish. And the third challenge, I'd say, would be the speed of response, because we are dealing with a lot of data, and our prompts to the LLM model are quite big because of the size of the articles and the number of the articles that contain information like this, relevant information for a user question. So we had to experience with multiple models of the Mistral LLM, multiple variants. We saw that we initially tried to use the best model of the company, the large model, which provided very good answers, but unfortunately, to our expectation, the time to provide the response was a little bit too big. So we had to retry with different other models. We even did a comparison between Mistral small model and competitor OpenAI model in order to see what would be the best one to use for a balanced time to response and accuracy of the response. We kept in mind that we would like to use within the project an European-based model. Therefore, after all our testing and with the help with all of our partners, we agreed and we switched to the small model from Mistral, which provided similar accuracy with the competitors, did not have a big impact between the answers that were given by the big model of Mistral as well, but the speed increased a lot. So I say these are the three major challenges that we had.
Thank you very much, Stefanita. So let's move on now to the second topic of our discussion, which is all about the lessons learned and the pitfalls to avoid. So I will ask this question to each one of you. Like, what are the main lessons that you learned since you launched your chatbots, and what would you avoid as pitfalls if you were to launch it again? So I don't know who wants to go first on that one.
Well, I can go. We have a quick one with Seb. I think that it's more a reflection on what we would have done differently. So we would have definitely launched earlier. We think we kind of waited too long. And we would have definitely wanted to have the NEO included in the study that I was speaking about earlier on the chatbots. And hopefully we can do it in the next edition. So I think these were our two main areas that we reflected upon.
Thank you, Justyna. Sébastien, you want to add something, or no? That's fine. Mathieu, what?
Yeah, sure. I can go. I think for us the main lessons was about, I think, the size of the database, because of course, if you have a controlled and restricted database, it limits the risk of hallucination and inaccurate answers, but it also limits the possibility of answering certain questions. So before we launched, it's the main challenge we faced. So in the weeks before we launched publicly the website, so we had to publish a lot more articles than we planned. We had to reprompt several times also to be sure that the generated answer was the closest possible to the original article to avoid any kind of inaccuracies. And we also added, like Martin said, we added other kind of article, maybe just list of, for example, a concrete example, European heads of government and state. We had a list of that because, for example, if you ask who is the prime minister of this country, if we hadn't had the articles recent about that country. But we had an article like 2 years ago. The model was answering in a wrong way, in an accurate way. So we added that kind of documentary articles with list of head of states, with list of European executive, with that kind of things. So just to be sure we have accurate answers. And so reprompting several times. And also what we learn and what we wanted to do is to be the most transparent possible, to be sure that the LLM can say, I do not know when it does not know. And also, of course, the importance of a human in the loop. So what we do, we have a dashboard. We control the answers provided. We can add sometime when we see there is no answers. We add articles just to be sure database is relevant for the users, because the users need to have an answer on that question because it's European related, but we haven't had the content, so we add that content. So I mean, the main lessons we learned in this few months experience.
Thank you, Mathieu. And David, what about you in David Dieudonné for Ouest-France? What did you learn from your experiment?
I'd say how newsroom engagement is key. Actually, we're extremely pleased to see the journalists like playing ball in this experiment. And the reason I think why is because we took some time to sort of explain the experiment, explain the process ahead of time. And I think that's something we learned for the future as well. Because it's great how the newsroom can actually leverage, as I mentioned, the user's question, and can actually make the coverage of an event more complete, in a way more accurate, and more in line with the real needs of the users. Some journalists were extremely surprised by some questions that were asked. Some of these questions being about very practical, how to access the place where the race was happening, how to find certain things there, and these were things that were not necessarily anticipated by journalists ahead of time when thinking about the coverage, and they really appreciated this sort of immediate interaction, immediate feedback on what they were writing and producing as content. So yeah, that's something we learned from a lot in the way we would think about the next experiments, and how we would make it even more efficient.
Thank you, David. And what about you, Martin, in Aftonbladet? What are the main lessons you learned from, well, you did it gradually, your experiment, but...
Yeah, I mean, I would say most things are said already, but I think one lessons learned is that it still does take a lot of time, a lot of manual work. We kind of did the mistake also of putting a lot of resources and time into developing a chatbot, but maybe not have a plan for how to work with it, to maintain it, to develop it. So, I mean, the job is not done just because you publish it, quite the contrary, so to speak. So you need a plan if you want it to be good. I think also one of the learnings basically for all our AI projects have been a very simple one, and that is that quality is everything. I mentioned it earlier that we didn't get any feedback, and I think that if you ask the audience or your workforce, like, do you think we should get involved with AI and use AI? A lot of people will say no, because they're skeptic towards the technology. They have, in the early days, they run their name in ChatGPT and got a really weird answer, right? So people are skeptic. But on the other hand, if you give them something that's really good, if you give a journalist a transcription tool that saves them, that saves her, hours of work, she will love it and use it. And same thing, if you give the audience a chatbot that serves a need and works well, then people will maybe not love it, but at least use it. So, but if you do like a bad product, then you will get a blowback from that. So I think that it's sometimes easy to blame technology or AI, but if you make a mistake, but the responsibility is yours, right? So that's, I would say, is maybe not a complicated but a very important learning, that if you do good products with or without AI, then people are going to use it. So have a plan for maintaining and developing your products, and do a product that's good.
Thank you, Martin. You were talking about the audience, like the relationship with the audience, and how did it affect this relationship with your audience? I mean, like, what insights do you have on that? What impact the chatbot had on your audience? Did it actually bring more viewers, like more readers to the website? Did it do? Because one question is, like, people go to the chatbots, but do they actually read the articles that are put in the answers of the chatbot? Like, is it taking readers away from your articles, or on the contrary, is it bringing more readers to your websites?
Well, our goal was not to. I mean, we don't really, to be frankly, care if it cannibalizes or if people reads the articles or not. So that's because we are catering to another audience. We are catering to the people who don't want to read articles. So that was never an issue or a question for us. It's hard to say if we have, gained new audiences. Maybe not, because we haven't really promoted the chatbot. So it's, if you're not an Aftonbladet user, then you won't know that it exists. But that might come later. I don't know. It has gained us a lot of insights of the how the audience. I mean, when we had the election chatbots, we could constantly feed in story ideas to the newsroom. Like, a lot of people are asking about this, but we don't have the answer to that. And it still works like that. So sometimes, since we monitor at least the questions that people type in themselves, we can see that people start writing or asking, like, what's going on in this particular city or village, and then we can ask the newsroom, and they'll call the authorities there, and then we get some news out of it. So it's in that sense, it's very good to see also what people are asking, obviously, because there's a loop for that. But I think it's very important to stress that this service is not for people who, it's specifically made for people who don't want to read articles. So we do not care if it would cannibalize at all.
Thank you, Martin. Now back to David Dieudonné from Ouest-France. Are you going to renew your chatbot experience like you did? So you experimented it on the 24 Heures du Mans last year, but was it successful? Are you going to renew it, or?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, it was successful, and that sort of encouraged us to repeat the experimentation. But as Martin said, I mean, it takes a lot of workforce to actually maintain it during the course of an experiment like this. So we have to pick the right sort of new example to do it. We are thinking about trying to do this on specific vertical. We're thinking about the shopping vertical, which is an area we think it could be efficient, though we have started some tests and we're not yet there.
What do you call the shopping vertical, David? The shopping
the
vertical?
sort of recommendation of the way people access recommendation to specific objects or things they want to buy, and you get access to specific pages that are sponsored content. So it's an interesting way to get to offer user access to this content on the platform. And then ultimately the idea is to have it available for readers, for the audience, to access to our archive and a greatest amount of our content on many other topics than one specific vertical. But it implies specific challenges. especially given the sort of breadth of our content. We have an archive of more than 1 century of news, which is about 100 million content, both text, pictures, and video. So the many technical challenges related to this, and we're working together with actually a public research institute in France, CNRS. On this, we've created a joint research lab at the beginning of last year, and this is one of the very important topic that we're trying to address with them. But it's almost an area of research, and it's sort of the horizon of what we're trying to do with this.
Great, thank you, David. Moving on now to the EBU team. So you have many members within EBU. They all have access to Neo. Some of them have already adopted it, as you said, Sébastien. But what is the general attitude of your members toward AI assistance? Do you see like more of them willing to embrace AI assistance?
I think there is kind of on the general comment, and then Seb can pitch in on any technological details. But in principle, yes, there is. I think there is openness to go further and to test, and they also, of course, test their own solutions. If we think about main concerns, I think there is that the most important for journalists is, of course, the trust. So any models, any chat systems will be first thoroughly tested. And then it, of course, creates additional problem also of the resources within the newsrooms, because it becomes a new service. And then the other thing which we shouldn't forget about is that it costs money. So there is also a question of costs simply of implementing it. But I think that because of the reasons we discussed before, and this is a new potential channel of communication with the audiences, it's something that we can't just ignore. We have to experiment.
Thank you, Justyna. Sébastien, you wanted to add something, or?
Yeah, we see our members are very interested, even as was said a little bit today, trying that for specific use cases, not just like a general chatbot on the homepage or something like that, but to tackle specific events and timings. For example, we had one for the Olympic Games, and that was quite an interesting one as well. And we see our members willing to experiment more with specific versions of Neo for specific use cases. It's true, like trust and costs are really the key, and I think probably this is not just towards AI assistants that we have this concern, and probably everyone in the room will have the same concerns. But whenever you have AI, there is always a risk at the moment for certain issues, certain things that would not be perfect, and so on. And in some cases, obviously, you can have the famous human in the loop that will check the results. If you do like transcription, as was alluded before, anyone can check that the transcription is correct before you decide to take it and to serve it to your audience. But that's the problem with AI assistants. Usually people can type their own question. This is what we want. And you cannot have an editor read the answer before you bring it to the person in the final place. So here we have to accept a certain level of risk, and I think that's an issue, because we know that sometimes journalists and editors can be under quite some pressure because of that. So we have those two types of options. On the one side, we want to move forward and be innovative and everything, and that comes with a risk. And on the other side, we want to be trusted and avoid any risks. And I think it's this tension that creates some problems and discussions.
Yeah, right. And the last question, and then we'll move on to I can see that there's already quite many questions on the chat, but there was one last question to Mirko Lawrence, so from the Chat Europe team, because Mirko did a whole report on how to evaluate the chatbot and its impact on the audience. So Mirko, how did you proceed? I mean, how did you evaluate the Chat Europe chatbot and its impact on the audience?
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. Yeah, maybe if my impression is there were several studies regarding how AI could be presented to the European public, but more in technical and organizational terms. And regarding the exact needs of the European audience on all the different languages from all the different regions, our knowledge is kind of limited. We learn from examples and we find out what people want in certain occasions. In this context, I think Chat Europe is an interesting experiment. We came out of the gates very early, including getting some criticism from very early users for not answering all the questions, disclaimer, yes or no. So that was the first step. And we are now moving from this first establishment phase where we set up the bot, the languages, the different views and so on, to increasingly talk with users about their expectations. I understand use cases like Aftonbladet from a certain regional country perspective, but here, that is the interesting thing about Chat Europe. We're talking about a European audience with multiple sub-interests, different views, and that's what we're after. Deutsche Welle is responsible for now going into interviews, and what I would hope for is that we can contribute to the future formula, which we are all looking for, of what are the traditional contents, what is the AI component, and what is the benefit of the user. That gives a sort of summary. Maybe there's a question and I can elaborate.
Thank you, Mirko. Does anyone else from the speakers have any other question or other points they want to put forward? Because otherwise we have quite a few questions waiting for us in the chat. And one of them is from Almut Good. It's quite interesting. It's about can the answers of the chatbot be quoted, or is there a note for the readers that the chatbot answer cannot be quoted? So how do you secure that the answers are not used in another media, like quoted EB, like I don't know, Aftonbladet said, or Chat Europe said? How? Well, that's a tricky one. Anyone wants to answer that question? How can we actually make sure we're not quoted?
Yeah. I think it's really, we talked about the links, and if you wish, we could imagine in an ideal scenario that we have like a parallel with the social media content. So there's always somewhere a source, a copyright holder, and if the system is operating correctly and is correctly annotated, then you should be able to have the source. And you won't be then sourcing it like some people used to source social media content from YouTube. But of course, this was not coming from the YouTube. It was coming from Facebook. It was coming from originators of that content. And the same parallel we could put with chatbot.
Thank you, Justyna. And actually, there's another question that can be linked to this one. Is how important is it for to certify the content in the chatbot answers? And I know Sébastien, C2PA, and all that you've been working on this, on how to certify images. So maybe you have how important it is to have this, to certify that this image was an AFP image, this text was an AFP text, or an Aftonbladet text.
Well, I think here probably everyone is taking the same approach, where we use only our own content and content that can be trusted. So, and that's probably like a key differentiator that we have towards the industry when people are using, ChatGPT, Perplexity, and others, because the BBC EBU study has shown very well that the sources that might be used by the commercial chatbots, they tend to pick things from everywhere. I mean, you may ask the news, and you may ask about about a news-related question, and maybe the chatbot will go and source itself on eBay or Reddit or anywhere else, and might use all sorts of good reputable sources and intermix them with sources that would be more questionable. And that's a major issue that we have on commercial chatbots, while I think everyone is going there by saying we have quality content, and that is the ground for bringing you content that you may want to like, because it's more restricted with the database that is being used. So that's one thing. And the second thing, I think, for the users, it's all about attribution. If you are able to always provide a link so that people can fact check the content themselves, they can go and navigate to the source and so on and see that it makes sense, they will probably come to trust you. If you can also put a few logos and brands, I think it doesn't hurt. People will also appreciate that. There's also the way how you frame even the tool itself. Our Swedish colleagues of the Swedish radio, they were very keen in not naming that an AI chatbot, but promoting that as a news search. And I think that's quite important as well. We've heard people telling us, well, we don't like another product that we have that is called Eurovox that does AI-based translations, because we don't like AI translations. We prefer Google Translate. And that is an interesting statement, right? Because obviously Google Translate does AI translation, but the perception of the people were different. So I think depending on how you promote the tool, what is its ground and so on, people might actually love it and like it and trust it, or they might not. So this is about UX more than about technicalities, but I think it plays a huge role in the acceptance of the different tools and how people will come to trust them.
Of course. Another question from Barbara. She's asking whether to implement the chatbots, are we relying on our own internal resources, developers, designers, audience managers, or did we rely on external resources? So I think according to our different projects, it's the answer is different. For Chat Europe, maybe Mathieu, you want to answer? Like it's a consortium of different partners. So
yeah, definitely. So so it's a consortium. So we provide the content, but of course we had a technical partner. Reed was a technical partner and build the chatbot, relying after on the LLM to generate the answer. But we don't have. I mean, Reed has the resources, and we as media organization, we didn't put any technical resources on that. It was more like a partner of the consortium. We did the technical part.
What
and
about
just to put a technical aspect on this, or give a little bit inside information to answer this question, we rely on our own human resources to actually develop the AI agents, as we call them now. We no longer call them chatbots. I think we're much further than that, even from the beginning of our project. But of course, our colleagues do use AI tools to improve their way of working and to speed up the way that they work. But in this project in particular, there was no need for vibe coding or stuff like this.
Thank you, Steph. What about you at EBU, Sébastien? It's
everything
internal?
was developed. Yes, everything was developed internally. It started very early on because we had the chance of having already a data science platform when ChatGPT was launched. We were already familiar with things like embeddings and so on because of the work that we were doing on recommendations engine, for example. So the first version could be done just a few months after the launch of ChatGPT. But then because of lack of resources and other priorities, it stayed in a kind of a limbo for a certain time. And then we restarted the work and we put a lot of effort to make it good. So that is maybe addressing one question that I saw in the chat where people are asking, can we just do a quick one as a test? Well, you can do a quick one as a test, but to go from like it kind of works to it works decently for your audience, that is the typical 20-80% kind of split. So you spend 20% to create something that works at an 80% satisfaction rate. But if you want to go to the last mile and have something that really works works well, you'll have to put quite some efforts. But I would also say it depends exactly what you have in mind. If you have a small set of content, a few hundreds, because it's for a specific use case, the content doesn't change too much and so on, maybe it's fine and it's much easier because you don't have so much to choose from. But if you want something that is really snappy and that is able to follow the news as the news happens with almost no delay and a database with multiple millions of elements, then it's another story. So it depends a bit what you have in mind.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sébastien. Yeah, there's a question about, if you're a small organization with not much money, is it even realistic to develop a chatbot?
My recommendation would be go with something that exists already.
Yeah. Mirko, yep.
Yeah, I wanted to add one. What I'm seeing, I did an interview with a smallish Finnish newspaper that has a public newspaper and paid content on the other side just the other day. They developed their own solution in less than 3-4 months because it started with needing a Finnish spell checker. Now they have a very smart AI-generated CMS that helps journalists to generate content along the lines of what I saw with Sébastien Noir and EBU liquid content. So they have one topic and can play it in different formats. And this is, I think, a relevant way forward because what we didn't mention that much, the formats that we have today, to an extent, get us into trouble. What Mathieu was saying, if we have an older article about another president and that's the only one in the database, the AI quickly assumes, oh, that's the president. Oh, no, it's not. So this dynamics of future content formats is another issue, and a structural one and a quality one in terms of trust. So a lot of moving parts that we see here at this very moment.
Thank you, Mirko. I didn't ask Martin or David about the question about whether you developed the chatbot internally or you needed to ask other companies to do it for you.
No, we built it in-house here with our development teams. Yes, we did.
And same for
West-France. Same here, yeah.
Vibe coding was not around.
Mm-hmm. There was a question about, and I see, Sébastien, you answered it directly in the chat. Can ChatGPT, Claude, etc. use the questions and answers from your chatbots? And Sébastien, you said a clear no. We have a contract in place to avoid that. So yeah.
I also said no.
Okay, so I think the answer is clear. Did I miss any other question on the chat? By code. Can the answers be quoted? No, I think most of them. For Sébastien and Justyna, to your knowledge, do a lot of your members, no, that's already answered. Do a lot of your members intend to put a chatbot on their website? So you answered that earlier, Sébastien?
The answer is it depends what you mean by a lot. It's not all of them, but we are already working with other members to craft specific solution to adapt Neo to their specific needs and so on. We have different people in the pipeline. So it's quite obvious that by this summer, there will be more members in production with Neo for one use case or another. So this is clearly happening. There is clearly traction on that, but probably not just because it's sometimes I even want to refer to Neo as not a chatbot for your website, in the sense that this is not about having another widget, another nice, funny feature that you have on your website. It's about understanding where generative AI is driving us, how it is shaping a new user experience, how people are becoming more aware that they want to change the way they interact with website, with media, with machines, and so on. So it is not just like a dialogue tool. It is there for us to envision this new space, probably a little bit like when we started developing our first website some years ago, or creating the first native applications for phones and so on. It is something that we explore together with the users, and it's of a strategic importance, and then can lead to develop new ways of interacting for other places as well. When I'm in the car, I will not type my question, right? I will want to ask and get an answer there. And hopefully I will get trusted directions on where to go, but also trusted directions on how to understand the news there. And for me, that's also a reason to say we should collaborate more, because the competition nowadays is probably not the nearby newspaper, TV, or whatever. The competition is the big tech that are taking the global audience, even from us as European public service media or media organizations of different sorts. So I would dream that we have like one common database of content with the content of everyone, and then we can serve all those different use cases with technologies like that. That's the definition for me of liquid content. It flows to more places as well. It's not just that we can morph it into a different shape, it's that it becomes more available to travel to the audience, wherever the audience is, whatever is the way of accessing it.
Exactly. I agree entirely with you, Sébastien. And I think, yep, your European perspective and Chat Europe are good examples of this, and how, like, coming all together, we can like unite and create something that is made in Europe and with reliable content. And yeah. So Mathieu, you want to say something?
Yeah. Just to jump on the question about the developing, and just to make the audience better understand how many resources and manpower are needed to operate a chatbot. For example, Martin Schori from Aftonbladet, how many people are on a day-to-day basis working on the technical part and the editorial part of A?
I mean, right now it's basically, you could say, one editorial person and no one on the technical side. But again, I mean, I would love to develop it. I think there's a lot of stuff you can do with it. So I would love to have, but just to kind of maintaining it as it is now, it's not something that takes up a lot of resources, I would say. Yeah.
But during the development, how many people intervene in the process?
So we had, back then we had an AI hub with about 7 people who worked full time. That was 2 developers for editorial. Then we also used basically a whole editorial development team. We have reorganized since then, but I think they were about maybe 6 people, and they're all developers. So it was quite a big team, and they worked for maybe 4 months, I would say, more or less full time with that. I guess it would have been faster now, but yeah.
Okay, interesting. Thanks.
Well, I think we've reached the end of this very interesting webinar, and I don't know if there are any other questions. I don't see any more questions on the chat. So, well, thank you everyone for taking part, and thank you to all our amazing speakers today.